Scarcely had I gained a secure seat upon the sill, than a huge hand grabbed me by the neck from behind and dragged me violently into the room. Here I was thrown upon my back and beheld, standing over me, a colossal ape-like creature, white and hairless, except for an enormous shock of bushy hair upon its head. Hello and welcome back to Pathfinder to John Carter of Mars. Today we're talking about the monsters of Barsoom, because it wouldn't be much of an adventure if you didn't get attacked by some kind of ravenous monster at some point. I am joined again by friend of the channel, Doomboy.
Salutations, folks. I love this whole era of monsters where we didn't put much thought towards how these creatures function, what their lifestyle must be like. No, instead, here's a hippo, it's on the North Pole. Enjoy. Or here's a lion with extra limbs. Do those limbs do anything? Meh. But we'll get into those creatures. We're going to take some that we have and build upon them like we did with our other races, and try and make these creatures stand out just a bit more, and make them a good deal nastier and mightier, because it wouldn't be John Carter if there wasn't a chance of being torn to shreds by a banths.
Yes, but of all of the monsters of Barsoom, none is more iconic than the white apes. You've probably actually seen these at some point somewhere. They're big, they're covered with white hair, they have 4 arms, they're just damn scary. In fact, these creatures are so iconic, we don't even need to do anything to put them in Pathfinder because Paizo took care of that for us.
Really makes our job easier, and a little part of me wishes that Paizo just did the work for the rest of them, but we came through. Our Garalin, as they're called in Pathfinder, are at measly CR 6, a great starting monster to throw at a party that you're dumping in Barsoom. Alongside that, they also have the high version, which increases their CR by 3 and makes them a good deal smarter, including giving them spell-like abilities. Creating darkness, teleporting, because they get at-will dimension door, and dominating other creatures, and the fear ability. They're smarter than your average ape, wielding weapons, clubs, and swords if they could somehow get the way of it, and getting armor too. They are a fierce, terrifying creature to deal with, made worse by the fact that these creatures like to fight in numbers. So something to be wary of when throwing them at your players. It's a great introduction, though, as these creatures are large, have 4 arms, like many Barsoomian creatures, and have nothing more on their mind than peeling you like a banana.
White apes appear almost all over Barsoom. From the fabulous dead cities left behind from the days when Mars was a verdant garden world, to the still surprisingly moist and plant life heavy valley door found at the south pole of Mars, to the mountainous regions between the great cities of Barsoom, odds are pretty good that if you stumble around the wastes of Mars long enough, a great white ape is going to jump out of the woodwork and try and rip your head off.
Speaking of jumping out of the woodwork, we have the absolutely terrifying banths. Banths are a 6-limbed tiger that is so notorious for its terrifying skill that it makes as a fantastic guard for the orange Martians of the north, stalking and lurking across the dead seas and through the mountains. We felt that dire tigers were a great start for these creatures, giving them an extra set of claw attacks and the rend ability. They'll grab onto you, they dig their claws deep into you, and tear, giving them the boon of being able to rend twice in one turn as opposed to the standard once, because extra limbs, extra attacks.
Yes, the banths are absolutely terrifying on tabletop. Now, there are a couple of different levels of this creature you can throw at players. You can start off simply adding extra limbs to a regular lion or tiger. But if you want to upgrade to some of the real monsters of Barsoom, you can throw those extra limbs on something like a dire tiger.
We also felt that in order to keep with their nature of these truly terrifying creatures, we'd give them a fear aura, akin to the aura that dragons have. These creatures are monsters of legend, so just being in the presence fills those that see them with a bit of terror.
So, moving on from the fearsome Barsoomian lion, we have those polar hippos that we have been talking about, the apt. The apts are native to the North Pole of Mars, and they are found in the vicinity of the yellow Martians, who hunt them as you would any great beast of legend, like, a boar or a bear or something. But these guys are quite a bit more dangerous than prosaic Earth life.
Bug-eyed, white-furred, extra limbs, as is Barsoomian tradition. And we felt that a creature most fierce enough for this would be the hippo. You can make your standard hippo if you want to make a younger, weaker apt, or you can go for a dire hippo if you want them to really strike fear into the hearts of your players. Gnashing, biting, crushing bones with their mighty jaws. They make for something properly alien for this land.
Yes, another creature to pull traits from would be the dire polar bear, because they get the size and the claw attacks. Remember, most creatures on Barsoom are going to have more than 4 limbs, and claws are a pretty common trait.
And also, don't be afraid to use the dynamic landscape of Barsoom to your advantage to make combat more, dynamic. Having tight crevices you need to squeeze between to keep out of the jaws of these gnashing creatures, climbing atop cliff faces to avoid their grasp, or being chased by the Gorallins up the cliffs, trying to gnash at you with their teeth and sabers. It's important to use what you have around you, both to your advantage and to the party's disadvantage.
And in the particular case of the apt, should your players happen to walk across a snowdrift, they could easily find a fearsome apt jumping out of the snow and taking a bite out of them.
Or taking them all out in one bite.
Hungry, hungry apt. Next up, hailing from the mysterious Valley Door, are an ancient race of creatures that are both man and plant. They are known as the Plant Men of Mars.
At least we didn't call them the Plant Martians. We're a bit torn on how to best handle them, where we have some weaker, more reasonable creatures like Vegapygmy and Myconids, which would be good if players want to actually play as these gnashing, crashing, terrifying creatures. Or, as D6 recommended, Migos, from Lovecraft of all things. D6, would you like to talk a bit more about the Migos for these plant men?
Absolutely. The Plant Men of Mars have some unusual biological traits. They have one single eye, they've got kangaroo-like tails, they are fond of jumping, as many people on Barsoom are, and they've also got these strange boneless arms that they use to grab, drain the life from, and eviscerate various creatures that have the bad luck of crossing paths with the plant men. One of the things that works well for Migo is they have multiple attacks and a grab that allows them to do additional damage, and Migo are, if you check their stat line, they are plant creatures, so they have that in common with the plant men as well.
It's not impossible to make these creatures something for players to play as, but it'd certainly be unusual. They don't have anything particularly terrifying or outlandish to make them stack up to other players or other races upon Mars, but whenever it comes to a fight, they best handle things in numbers. John Carter and Tark, his best green Martian buddy, had a great deal of difficulty fighting these creatures, as with every one they slashed down, 3 or 4 would pop up. They're keen on leaping on people, grabbing at them, and tearing them to shreds. So, potentially give them the rage ability, because they're just little balls of anger.
Yes, also throwing in a mix of different sizes. So having a Migo standing in for an adult plant man with several Vegapygmies with it, representing newly sprouted ones, would make for a fight with various different creatures that present different threat levels to your players.
Numbers are a great way to make these creatures all the nastier and making your combat more dynamic. It's one thing to have to face off against one banth or one apt or one of these plant men, but it's another thing to have to face off against 5 or 6 with the fear that more are coming. Your players should be wanting to both win combats and survive combat. Barsoom is a harsh world, and we should treat it as such.
The final creature that we're going to cover in this video is one that's just as likely to end up as a close friend and companion to your players, as well as an enemy. The Martian Callet, or the war dog often employed by the Green Martians.
So we thought direwolves would be the way to go. Direwolves, it's simple. They're bigger, they're badder, they're nastier.
That's the only real statistical change you'll probably want to make to the Callet when taking it from a direwolf is increasing its land speed. Because of the extra limbs, of course, Callets move more quickly than wolves do.
They also have extra limbs, so if you're feeling generous for your players, you can give them extra claw attacks. They kind of look like pugs, don't they?
Yeah, so those weird froggy-looking heads.
Yeah, Martian pugs.
Thank you for watching this episode of Pathfinder to John Carter of Mars. The works of Edgar Rice Burroughs and other classics of science fiction and fantasy are the foundations of games like Pathfinder and D&D. If you'd like to start your own journey across Barsoom, click the Amazon affiliate link in the description of this video and check out the Princess of Mars audiobook on Audible. Reading any of the John Carter books will be a great source of inspiration for you, whether you're a player or dungeon master. And if you'd like more awesome Pathfinder 1E content, check out D6 Damage on YouTube or BitChute. We've got class analysis, strategy guides, and much, much more.